first of all, just tell me what Total is New York is, and do it by kind of showing it.
Well,
and you don't have to look at me. Look at concentrate on the screen. You know, you can sit facing the screen even.
Right. Well, over the course of the 4 years that Total New York existed, it went through a number of permutations and redesigns, constantly changing. But what never changed was it was always a website devoted to the personality and the passion of the city. When we first started to put this together, we realized there was a unique opportunity that, you know, at that point the web was this amorphous void, and most websites, even the best of them, there was no there. And when we decided that we were going to build a website that focused on New York City in particular, we were immediately very excited by this feedback loop between the potential of a new media digital network and the actual city. So, you know, that resulted and manifested itself in cybercasts. Obviously, we had features, interviews. This is a piece that Total ran when Sean Elder was editor. Okay. Total New York, first and foremost, was a site about New York City, and it was designed to capture the spirit and excitement of New York on the web using the interactive possibilities of new media. So that meant having reviews, that meant being a city guide, that meant features, interviews, cybercasts, chats. For me as editor, it meant bringing in as many top writers from the New York Times, from Time Magazine, people from NPR and so forth, to come in both as journalists to write pieces, and then also we had a tradition of collaborators like Sting, David Byrne, Wendy Wasserstein did a piece for us. Total New York also spawned something called The Spanker, which was a satirical review of websites that grew and developed its own following. We had a famous Dead New Yorkers series. We had music reviews, we had restaurant reviews, we had features on the underworld. Total New York was always about the edgier, racier side of New York City. It was offbeat, not specifically downtown, but it had a kind of a quasi-subcultural attitude about it, and that meant capturing a vision of New York that a lot of people in and out of New York had. So right from the beginning, Total was very popular with people outside of the city. We realized after the first few months that our audience was coming from not just New York, but also Canada, Latin America, Europe, Singapore, Japan. So the phenomenon, this place in the imagination of what New York City was, suddenly became available to people all over the globe. And for us, the freedom to explore that meant having, you know, a map of a love map of New York. It meant having a searchable database of restaurants, bars, clubs, stores, kids' activities, museums, galleries, and so forth that we called urban access. It meant very opinionated, feature-like restaurant reviews. It meant getting people like Wendy Wasserstein to do a piece on her favorite places in New York. It meant having real estate guides for affordable apartments. There were opinionated pieces written by our audience who would chime in with their own recommendations, reviews, events. We had an events calendar that was very well done. This is part of Wendy Wasserstein's piece. This is her writing. We also had music pieces, literature. I seem to have run out of here.
Okay, I mean, if you had to sum that up, you know, just going through the site, you had what was, you know, like a sentence or two of what Total New York was and what you had on the site. And just look at the site and go through it as you're answering this.
Well, I think, you know, ultimately, Total New York was like new media itself. You know, McLuhan said, new media incorporates all former media, and that's what Total New York did. It captured the attitude and content of.
You know, have one hand on the mouse and
Right.
scroll or click, and just, you know, what was Total New York and what were the kinds of things it had, as simple and quickly as you can see it.
I mean, our mission.
Actually, repeat the question, like Total New York was, is.
Total New York. Okay.
Yes.
All right. From the beginning, Total New York was and continues to be a website about the energy and personality of New York City and all the myriad ways in which New York City manifests itself. It was about the people, it was about the culture, it was about this intersection of energy, this crossroads of libido and industry and publishing, Wall Street, culture. This is a piece we did on a love map of New York. You could actually get people's impressions of sex stories in various parts of the city. New York was always edgy. New York had a lot of attitude, but Total New York was also very functional. So we had a section called Urban Access that was a guide to restaurants, bars, clubs, bookstores, a directory of all the things you could possibly want from the city, including shopping. We had restaurant reviews, Moomba, Balthazar, and so forth. We had features by prominent New Yorkers. One of the aspects of New York was getting quintessential New Yorkers to contribute. Spalding Gray, Carlos Fuentes, David Darcy from National Public Radio. Wendy Wasserstein did a piece on her favorite places around town, her secret New York, her hideaways, the nooks and crannies, the bars, the restaurants, the little moments in the city that she loved. We also, Total New York also, over the years, spawned The Spanker, which was a satirical review of personal web pages that once again, and developed its own following and homepage. And once again, that personified Total New York's attitude, which was always offbeat, edgy, somewhat fearless, racy, but never outrageously so. And this is, I think, this is a piece on an aspiring male model that looks awfully familiar to me.
And just one last thing, what happened?
Well, Total New York went through many iterations and evolutions, and in the end, after we were bought by Digital City, it continued for almost a year before America Online, the parent company, finally decided it didn't make economic or programming sense to keep it going, which was much noticed in the industry and mourned by more than a few in Silcon Alley.
Right. That's all I need. Now what I need to do.
Sent in there. You know, you might want to cut backwards to this because this is where people posted their kind of reactions to the site since it's been shuttered.
Right.
So it's kind of like eulogies. You know, this is where the thing I read downtown was on this post, this bulletin board. So.
Hey, do me a favor and just scroll the screen.
So these are all comments and reactions to stuff on the site. You know, I suppose it's somewhat ironic that a lot of these people have never been to Total New York before. This is their first.
Just, now go to the next, whatever the next screen will be.
Okay. I think a lot of them don't even realize that the site is technically defunct. But that's, you know, the beauty of the web is.
Can you scroll on this at all, or that's what it is?
I think that was. Oh, let me go back.
Go back to that.
It's a little bit of scroll. Yeah, that's about it. It's just a little menu bar at the bottom.
And so what is this here that you're writing?
Well, you can go into it. These are stories related